Hello everybody, and welcome to today's presentation. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes. Everyone but the presenters are on mute, but please send in questions at any time in the question toolbox at the upper right-hand corner of the GoToWebinar window. And I'm sure that everybody already knows this, but it's a good idea to close any of the extra windows that you have open to prevent some buffering issues. We're going to be recording today's webinar, and it will be emailed to everyone within about 24 hours after the webinar is over. So with that, let's get started. All right. So let me briefly introduce today's speakers, and they will provide a little more detail individually. I'm Leslie Hume. I'm with Everstream Analytics, and with me we have Brett Lankford. Brett, you can turn your camera on so everybody can see you if you haven't already, as well as Julie. Brett is from the Campbell's Soup company. He's been there for the last 3 years. He's held most recently the position of business process lead and has prior experience in both physical logistics and CPG. We're also today joined by Julie Christensen, CEO of Gordon Labs and a director of the F4SS board. So let's have a look at today's agenda. First, we're going to hear from Julie about the foundation of supply chain solutions. And then Brett's going to share his insights on Campbell's learning during their risk mitigation journey. I'll briefly explain who Everstream is and how we help a couple of other companies as well as Campbell's manage their supply chain risk. And then finally, we'll get to take your questions. So with that, let me pass it over to Julie to talk about F4SS.
Thank you, Leslie. Good morning, everyone. Hope everybody's having a good day. It's early here in Los Angeles. You can see all the trucks driving by to the port, so don't worry, your stuff's getting there. Wanted to just start by introducing who I am. I'm the CEO of Gordon Labs. We're a contract manufacturer of personal care skincare products in the Los Angeles area. We're a member of the Foundation for Supply Chain Solutions, and I've also been a member at 2 previous companies. So when I talk about F4SS, I'm very passionate about it because truly I believe it's in the top 1 or 2 things that has happened in my career that has helped me develop professionally and really helped create a strong network for me personally so that I can continue to develop in my career. So we are a group that is focused on external manufacturing. I believe, and we all believe, that we're one of the only, if not the only, industry organization that actually focuses on the external supply chain. So that's really important. We started about 15 years ago in the vein of trying to raise the bar in contract manufacturing. The CPG companies felt like they needed better external capabilities, and I think that we can all agree that that has improved in the industry in the last 15 years, and I truly believe that F4SS has been a part of that journey. We also work on creating industry standards. We also look at efficiencies. We try to benchmark with each other without breaching any sort of antitrust. There's none of that going on, but it's really good to hear from other people to either commiserate or to share best practices so that you can try to apply them in your own organization. So Leslie, if you would like to advance the slide. So this is just a kind of a look at who we are. We're made up again of CPG companies, both food, personal care, household products, and we have a lot of the big Fortune 100 brands. We have indie brands. We also have contract manufacturers, contract packagers. We have freights and logistics companies, and we also have advisors like SGS and BSI that are part of our organization, and service providers like Nulogy and Red Zone. So we really have a broad spectrum of members and lots of networking and information to get and share with each other. In the middle, you can see some of our key benefits, the tools that we provide. You know, this webinar is one of those. We really try to create opportunities to share insights and best practices and see case studies and what's really happening in the real world. Sure, theory is great, but we want to hear how it's being applied at these organizations, and that really helps. And then who do we engage with? Our flagship events are typically conferences twice a year. We do one in the spring and one in the fall. It's a great opportunity to get together, and then we always try to do a meaningful tour. We've toured car factories, we've toured Amazon distribution centers, we've done pit crew events at the Indy 500 where we looked at lean and continuous improvement, and so we really try to find applicable tours that will allow us to see how things are being put into place, not only in our industry but also in other industries. Leslie, if you could advance the slide. So with that, we invite everybody to join. We're a boutique organization. I think that's really important. Also, we have hundreds of members, not thousands of members. And so truly you do get that one-on-one ability to interact with really supply chain leaders, people that are the top of their organizations at many of the CPG and supplier companies. So it's really unprecedented to get that kind of access to these decision makers and leaders in supply chain. So our next conference is going to be this fall. It will be in Las Vegas. Whoop, whoop. So it'll be a lot of fun. We'll be doing Topgolf and things like that, but also really getting some meaningful speakers that are going to be showing everybody and talking about what is happening in the industry. And our theme is pioneering the future of external supply chain. So what does that look like in the future? What are the things that are being done and are going to take us into that sort of the next element of the unknown in the supply chain world? So again, we invite everybody to join. So there's a couple ways that you can find out more information. You can either contact Paige Jarvie, her email is listed here. You can also go on our website, and that website's very easy to remember. It's f4ss.org, and you can go on there and get information. And then I think we have a slide at the very end that will also provide some more information if you didn't get a chance to take quick notes. So with that, I hope to see everybody in October, and we'll go on and speak with the presenters and learn about what they're doing with supply chain. Thank you, Leslie.
Awesome. That was great. Thank you so much, Julie. So just referring back to our agenda, I'm about to turn it over to Brett to give an overview of the Campbell's journey and how using technology improved their operations. But before I turn it over to Brett to share the Campbell's journey, since he's going to make mention of how Campbell's is using Everstream technology, I wanted to maybe explain what it is that we do for those of you that are attending that may not know. So I'm just going to let this slide populate here. All righty. So Everstream gives you predictive insights and analytics to make sure that your supply chain is faster, smarter, safer, and leaner through the entire supply chain process, whether that's plan, source, make, or deliver. Businesses need to risk adjust all decisions. And so with eyes in every port, plus art AI, plus human intelligence to identify patterns and perfect predictions, we help your supply chain become smarter and more autonomous. We'll show you your supply chain blind spots. We'll tell you what's about to happen, no matter where you sit within your company's supply chain. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of context. Campbell's is the story we're going to talk about today is very specific to transportation logistics, but and we'll talk a little bit later about a couple of other customer examples. All right, so with that, Brett, over to you.
Thank you, Leslie. Hello, my name is Brett Lankford. I wanted to start off today by telling you a little bit about my background. And overall, the headline is that over the last 10 years, my career has been focused on transportation strategy, processes, and technology. I studied supply chain management at Auburn University, worked for a logistics service provider with Coyote Logistics and UPS, led TMS implementations and transportation managed services teams in the chemical and industrial sector with a leading chemical 3PL called CLX Logistics, served as a transportation manager with Pinnacle Foods, ConAgra Brands, and the Campbell's Soup Company. And in my role with Campbell's over the last 3 years, my focus has been on driving operational excellence in transportation. My current role as transportation manager and business process lead sits within the meals and beverages division of the more than 150-year-old Campbell's Soup Company. It's home to the iconic brands and the traditional Campbell's products that might come to mind: the red and white condensed soup, Chunky brand, V8, Prego pasta sauce, Pace salsa, and the Swanson chicken broth. And these products have been feeding North America and helping families create new memories over the food that they love for generations. As supply chain complexity grows and new hurdles to keeping these products on the shelves arise, the need for more sophisticated and digital solutions to help drive both effective and efficient processes is becoming more and more imperative each day. There's been a growing focus on understanding and mitigating an increasingly complex landscape of disruptive supply chain events, particularly weather-related. You think about the variety of external risks that disrupt supply chain networks: hurricanes, wildfires, extreme weather events occurring dynamically across the network. And these impact the entire host of stakeholders: Campbell's facilities, our customers, raw material suppliers, and our co-manufacturing network. And in the past, managing these situations relied on pen and paper processes and heuristics, rules of thumb. Here are the states where the storm is expected to hit, or where temperatures may pose risk. Look up orders shipping from, delivering into those areas, pull an Excel file, gather comments and feedback manually from the stakeholders to ultimately make a risk management decision that's cumbersome, lengthy, resource intensive, and an educated guess at best. As Campbell's faced risk in the external environment, with impacts ranging from product loss and compromised product to service risk, the need for a solution to help identify, understand, and direct our actions to combat these dynamic environmental risks became a very clear business need. We explored solutions with incumbent technology providers, off-the-shelf solutions, and ultimately we identified Everstream as a potential solution through partnership with our 3PL, Transplace. And there were really three main reasons why Campbell's moved forward with Everstream: fit of the solution to address our use cases. It allowed a high level of configuration to help dial it into our specific needs, and integration capabilities with our TMS, which was a big one. These factors led us to embark on our digital journey to drive operational excellence with Everstream. The first step once we began this journey was proving it out. We have the solution, but our challenge was to then implement integrated processes that would allow us to effectively mitigate risk using the solution. And it all began with a pilot program, a Protect from Freeze solution. When you think about the traditional Campbell's meals and beverages product portfolio, many are liquid-based, which can make these products susceptible to freezing. I wanted to pop the hood for everyone and give you a sense of how this process unfolds for us each day. We start with the highest level, a meteorological overview of North America. This gives us a solid foundation each day during the winter, understanding what temperatures are experienced over the planning horizon across the continent, abnormalities where it's colder and warmer than typical for that time of year, and other impactful factors such as snowfall. It's a healthy foundation to then drill down with context. We then go a layer deeper and we review facilities in our network. Which facilities are seeing temperature risk? Campbell's plants, distribution centers, customer suppliers and co-mans, other key nodes in our network such as rail hubs where dwell and risk can manifest when temperatures drop. Which lanes and routes, such as high volume corridors or key rail lanes. These themes begin to arise with how these specific locations fit into the overall weather risk across the continent. Finally, we move to a shipment and order view. This is really where the magic happens. We review actual orders and shipments that have been identified through the solution as having freeze risk, per our parameters and understanding of our product risk. And we'll review orders still in the planning phase as well as those that are in transit. If it's in the planning phase, Where's the risk going to occur? At origin, in transit, at destination? Do we protect it? Do we plan it differently? Do we ship ahead or delay shipping? Change the mode and equipment type to apply temperature control and protect from freeze? Those are some of the levers that we pull. And in transit, we know which carriers to collaborate and communicate with to help prevent the risk that's been identified for these loads that are in flight. And when in doubt, communicate with the boots on the ground and let them know what we're seeing. And then bridge our views of risk. Are they stopping in risky areas? Can their understanding of our view of risk help drive their actions while the order's in transit? Those are some of the highlights of the tactics available to take action against this risk. Initially, this daily review took around 45 minutes as we digested the information and began to build out our processes and action planning. And now we spend about 15 minutes per day fully reviewing and actioning the orders identified, as well as the other review layers preceding it. The really cool part is that through data capture in the process, we're also then able to review, quantify, and communicate across the organization the actions and impacts to cost, service, and product integrity. And at a minimum, we are far more informed when we pull the levers and we know which ones we need to pull. With 3 winners now in rear view and the ability to reflect on all of this is a really well-oiled process with tribal knowledge distributed throughout the team and a process that continues to enhance and refine itself. And after establishing a clear and successful use case with Protect from Freeze, we began to expand our capabilities with Everstream to leverage it as our full weather risk management solution. Fast forward to where we're at today. Similar to the Protect from Freeze use case, we can now see impacts of specific weather events, such as hurricanes, wildfires, major snowfall events, to see the locations, suppliers, customers, and orders impacted. As these weather events begin to develop, Everstream is now the first stop for us. In fact, daily supply chain digests actually get pushed to the users' inboxes. So each day we walk in and we have an update of what's going on risk-wise across the globe, everything from weather events to political and social unrest, and yes, a healthy dose of updates on what's going on with the war in Ukraine. And I really like demonstrating the product when I give presentations like this and giving you a picture of what it looks like living in the system. And here's a real Kodak moment for you, a snapshot in our journey from this past winter season. Here is a major winter storm that hit the Midwest and the East Coast this year. And a new incoming supply chain executive at Campbell's asked the business, what is our potential production risk due to delayed inbound shipments as a result of this storm? That question alone would have caused the gears to grind to a halt in the past, to pivot towards creative solutioning, more heuristics, digging for information, and where do you even go to get it? And I'm not exaggerating. We answered that question in less than 5 minutes. With one double click, a drill down into the storm, we're able to summarize all suppliers and production facilities potentially impacted, as well as the individual POs and each individual PO's level of risk. I'll give you another example. Think about an incoming hurricane expected to hit the Houston, Texas area. What are you even looking at? Customers in Houston? The 770 zip codes? What about shipments traveling through Texas or Oklahoma and Louisiana? What customers and suppliers do you even need to call? It's helped us digitize the risk management process and brought a whole new level of sophistication and insights that allow us to work more effectively and more efficiently, time saved, product saved, real ROI, no frozen loads. The information that this solution gleans is incredibly powerful. No more digging for needles in the haystack. They're delivered to you every day. This is a solution that's exciting. It's new technology. It's one that shippers and logistics companies have been seeking for years. And as we introduce people in the organization to technology, it's generated a lot of excitement. This is cool, the aesthetics, the functionality, the fact that you're working in something that's new and cutting edge. This really helps drive the success of technology implementations and change management initiatives. So this really has truly become an essential tool in our tool belt and one of the key steps in the digitization of our supply chain. I hope that you've enjoyed this peek behind the curtain into Campbell's digital operational excellence journey with Everstream. Thank you, and I'll pass it back to you, Leslie.
Thanks, Brett. That was very condensed, but some really fabulous insights and very specific. So thank you for sharing that with all of us. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about Everstream Analytics and a couple of use cases that are a little bit different, but might give you an insight into the end-to-end supply chain coverage that we have. So we like to say that we keep the world moving by keeping risk out of the way. And we're often asked, right? Like, where do we get an ROI on this? Investing in technology is never, easy to justify. So how do we bring this into our environment without breaking budgets and proving to our CFO that there's an ROI here? So we think the results speak for themselves. Clients have achieved significant operational efficiencies in reducing costs in things like 30% reduction in revenue loss due to a disruption. And like Brett shared in the Campbell's example, our clients can often achieve 50 to 70% reduction in time to identify and assess the impact of a potential disruption. And as we've all seen through the last COVID years, disruptions have happened well beyond our expectations and certainly will more than likely continue to do so. And then additionally, Everstream clients can often achieve a 5% improvements on on-time performance. So let's look at a couple of client use cases. So like many of our clients today, a lot of you that are attending this webinar probably are saying, hey, I really want to look deeper into my sub-tier supply. Where is the risk sit there? So one of our global life science manufacturer clients wanted to do exactly that. They wanted to look deeper into their sub-tier supply of 2 critical materials, covering 2 tier 1 suppliers in the US and India. Our Everstream Discover solution identified 56 sub-tier supplier connections, which were previously unknown. They were also able to identify more than 20 sub-tier suppliers where similar categories of materials were being supplied to the tier 1. And ultimately, they were able to gain visibility to 38 incidences over the last 12 months that were linked to those sub-tier suppliers. So in the end, they improved their overall supply chain visibility and identified sourcing savings. The next case is a little bit different. This is one of our global CPG clients who has a very large reliance on wheat for their top-selling products, and they wanted to monitor weather risks that could impact global wheat markets. And now when I say wheat, it's not just wheat, because we have other CPG clients that want to monitor risks across a number of agricultural products, things like soybean, palm, and sunflower oil that I'm sure you've all heard of, the Ukraine-Russia crisis, how that's impacting that. Or maybe it's something like sugar, vanilla, or cocoa. What you're seeing on the right-hand side of this slide is a systematic visualization of major wheat producing locations around the world. Now, knowing and tracking extreme or impactful temperatures, so in this case, this is a visualization, it's not necessarily today, but where the red is saying, hey, wait a minute, we've got a problem here. There's a high risk or high likelihood of some type of impactful event. So knowing and tracking these extreme or impactful temperatures and wetness levels in regions such as Asia, Latin America, North America, and Europe was extremely important to help this client manage optimal sourcing conditions. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense of some other use cases. Of course, there are many more. So we're going to move on to the Q&A section of the webinar. So I hope you're all getting ready to type in your questions. As a reminder, there should be a screen in the top right location of your window, and you feel free to type your questions into the chat. So with that, I think we're going to unmute, not unmute, but we're going to open up the chat, and it looks like we might have a question already. And this one, Brett, it looks like it's for you. So hopefully I can read. My screen is a little small. Brett, before Everstream, how long did it take you to do all of this manually?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of difficult to put a time on it, but I guess the biggest thing that stands out is the time that's spent even finding where to go to get the information. Trying to bridge a 10-day forecast or what you're seeing on weather.com with the actual shipment activity and the activity in your supply chain. Even just bridging that gap, I mean, it could take hours to do. Which are you living in multiple systems, SAP, transportation management systems, etc. So it really is, it's a debilitating task, I think, when these come up, particularly when you're having to leverage pen and paper, processes and heuristics, like I mentioned, that really the time saved is having all of this information brought to you. The key essential exceptions that you need to have your eye on, you need to understand and manage. So, kind of a non-answer, but I would just say that the information being brought to the surface can save hours for multiple people potentially in a day as storms or severe temperatures arise. So, I mean, it's a significant time savings. I even think for us, I mentioned what it looked like, as we started the process, 45 minutes a day to 15 minutes a day. You think about what would this have been like if we did not have this technology? That storm that, our incoming supply chain executive asked about with inbound production risk, where we would have gone to get that information is probably fractured 2 or 3 different places. We probably assemble a war party in a conference room and start, cross-functionally and start talking through, what all of the different considerations we need to be thinking about, and hey, is this person shipping or that person shipping? So I think just being able to ultimately whittle it down to the key essential exceptions that you got to have your eye on is really the key. So significant time savings, different, I guess, based on the organization and the different kind of layers that are involved.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brett. And this is kind of along the same screen, same line of thinking, excuse me. And this one is for you again, Brett. How much money did Campbell save by preventing destroyed product losses?
So I'll say this, without giving you a figure, the solution has been very successful from in terms of the pilot process for Protect from Freeze. So since we've implemented the solution, we haven't had any frozen loads, particularly when we've been actioning inside the system. So really, since we've been living in it, it's been very successful in mitigating at least the initial process of the initial problem that led us down this road with Everstream. So I'd say we've seen savings in that we have not had frozen product, and in the past we did. So it's been very effective from that angle.
Great, thanks, Brett. So another question for you. How long did it take to create the needed systems connection between Campbell's and Everstream?
So we actually had a little bit of a benefit from that respect, in that, I mentioned that this solution was brought forward by our managed services and TMS provider, Transplace, a key partner of ours, who had been already working with Everstream. So integrations and some of those layers were already in place, which I mentioned. That was a very big reason why we moved forward with this solution. And obviously, from a transportation management standpoint, having that integration with our system and our area of execution was very essential. So we had a lot of the connections already in place, but at least from a resourcing standpoint, like I played the role of PM on this project. So understanding and vetting the solution all the way through, understanding the capabilities and how are we going to use it, and when we're living in it day to day, what are we going to be doing inside of this platform? And really that process, it was not a one-man army. And I kind of mentioned, like, you need to bring people together and involve people and like all the excitement that comes from that. But we really did bring the entire transportation team, our managed services operations team at Transplace together for that daily review. So, we've got diversity of opinions and different perspectives as we were going through it, particularly in those early days when we're kind of fumbling through it and learning our way. We also had Everstream in the room with us every day for those reviews too. So we had, customer success support from the Everstream organization, a part of that as well. So, you know, it really was, I guess ultimately you could do this a couple different ways. We decided to lean in and bring as many resources within the function into this as we could. So, you know, you avoid a lot of the pitfalls with the tribal knowledge, as well as just the benefits of having that diversity of opinion and different groups involved. So I guess that was at least our resourcing approach. There were a lot of cooks in the kitchen, with kind of one captain kind of steering the ship. So ultimately, I found that that approach was very successful and ultimately yielded a lot of benefits on the back end as well.
Awesome.
Leslie, maybe you can just add, because I'm listening. I'm not sure I totally heard the answer. Is it 2 months, 20 months? Do you have like a gauge of how long this normally would take?
Yeah, so I definitely can take that one. Thanks for asking, Julie. So, you know, it really depends how integrated the customer or the client wants to make the solution. In this case of Campbell's, it's a fully integrated solution. So it's going to take a few months to, again, it usually depends on how quickly both the customer, it's usually, you know, getting IT resources for any organization I found is extremely challenging. So a lot of customers tend to start as a standalone solution. The solution itself is designed to provide proactive alerting and involve various parties within your ecosystem, and it can be stood up within a few weeks, literally, but without an integration. And we're actually working in our mid-market space to come up with pre-configured networks that make it even easier to start based on your sector. So we're actually going to look to work with F4SS. Paul doesn't know this yet, but I'm looking to get some guidance on what would CPG companies like to see if I was to give you a pre-configured network, boom, day one, it's ready to go. So that's our goal. That's what we're building. But like I say, standalone is probably the easiest way to go, and that could be stood up within literally a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I guess just how long it took Campbell's. We ultimately decided to move forward in October, and we were living in it in November.
Wow.
That's integrated. Yeah. Interesting. Very good. All right. So we have another question here for you, Brett. What was the enabler that initially brought Everstream into Campbell's? Was there a crisis event or a leader with previous experience with the product?
So it was the former of those two. So we did have, you know, and just I mentioned it, you know, the product portfolio, it's liquid based. A lot of the stuff is shipped in glass. So it's very susceptible to freezing. It can compromise the product, the texture, might even make the glass jars explode. So there's a number of those risks that we had realized, you know, over time, just shipping across the country over these last 150 years or so. That we did ultimately experience a crisis. There happened to be a polar vortex in Chicago, which is one of the key rail hubs in the United States. And we did have some shipment volume that was going through that hub at the time. So we did realize some risk, you know, through some of these really dynamic weather events. I mean, the temperatures in Chicago were, you know, things that had never been really seen before. And it all was happening kind of while the rail hub was congested, and all of those things ultimately led to us realizing some risk. So yeah, there was an event that was kind of singed into our memories that, you know, really made it clear to us that we had a business need that we had to solve, because as those things come up, which levers are you pulling and where? So I think that's, you know, I gave the example too, like the Texas hurricane. You know, you go and look at, okay, well, the risk is we ship out of Ohio or we deliver into this state, and you look at those different components. But what about things that are traveling through places where there's risk? And that's where this example comes to mind. And there's not an easy data-driven way a lot of times in systems to see the points of interest along a route. So what this did was it ultimately allows us to drill down into those specific areas of risk, and it really brings all of that and bubbles it up to the surface for us. So yeah, there was an event that ultimately kind of spurred us in this direction. And since then, we have been able to navigate through those situations like nearly effortlessly at this point. So it's been a very effective solution that's going to help prevent that pain from being an experience that comes up again.
Wonderful. So we still have time for a few more questions, so this is great. What TMS is it integrated with? I know that you mentioned, Brett, that it's Transplace, but I don't know if you can go into specifics about the TMS system.
I mean, I can talk about Transplace to some extent, but we do have an integration. It's a two-way integration with Transplace. So we send information from our TMS to Everstream into the platform, which is where we live and do this risk management, is within the Everstream solution. But we also receive some information back into the Transplace TMS. I don't know if that question, Leslie, was what other TMS solutions out there is Everstream implemented with, but I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. Hopefully we've answered that question appropriately, but I can say that, listen, we integrate based on APIs. I mean, the API technology is really the way that most implementations get done quickly and with as little resources from the IT departments as possible. But when it comes to business applications, whether it's ERP or TMS, or whatever, a WMS system, it's pretty easy to integrate from SAP, Oracle, getting into OTM as a TMS, or like you say, if you have a 3PL, like Transplace, integrating to their systems, who then in turn can provide you visibility to your shipments, to your orders that they're managing for you. So yeah, we can definitely do that. And I think I saw one more here. So let's see here. I think that might actually be it. I'm going to just call on the back control room where that these questions come into, and just check with my colleague Heather. Have I covered all the questions?
Leslie, if anybody had questions about Everstream, is it best for them to just go to your website? How would they find out more from you?
Yeah, so we'll be emailing this presentation to everybody. So there'll be some information on that, but as well, I would encourage, as you can see on this slide, to follow us on LinkedIn. We actually are, there's a lot of, unfortunately, there's always a lot of bad things happening around the world. And so we try to update the business community through our LinkedIn posts. We're, paying particular focus these days to the COVID lockdowns and shutdowns in China and the war in Ukraine. And then, I also encourage you to visit our website as well. That is everstream.ai, everstreamanalytics.ai, because at that point you'll be able to go to our resource center, and there's a ton of really great in-depth special reports and things like that. Or you can register for some of our digests as well, because it can be a little bit overwhelming at times. So it's nice to get some of these executive snapshots, right? Of here's what's going on in the world that might be impacting you or your sub-tier suppliers. So that would be a good place to start. Or you can reach out to me as well, and we'll make sure that the coordinates are in the email, as well as how they can reach yourselves. I guess everybody that's a member knows how to find you, Julie, but maybe there will be some companies that want to join F4SS.
Well, yeah, and hopefully we'll have you speak at the event in the fall, and then everybody can meet you guys in person and have an in-depth conversation over a cocktail.
Now you're talking. Yeah, and it's in Vegas, no less, right? So don't remember the last time I went to Vegas. Anyway, we're digressing. So I think if there's no more questions, and if there are some that we missed, we'll certainly include those in our follow-up communication. But I've really had a lot of fun today, and I really want to thank those that attended the webinar, and especially yourself, Julie and Brett. Great meeting you both through this journey, and thank you so much for spending some time with us today. It's been awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all. Have a great day, everyone.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.